My name is Lillian Rowan. I am 32 years old. The restaurant light made everything look softer than it felt. The pale glow on wine glasses, the hush of white tablecloths, the little candle trying to make a flame look like comfort. I had booked this place because it was where decisions felt elegant, where plans sounded like promises, where the future could be sketched between appetizers and dessert. Ethan sat across from me, collar slightly askew like it had argued with his necktie and lost, eyes bright in a way that did not land on me. I thought we were here to finalize a date with the caterer, to lock in a venue we had toured twice, to give a deposit that had lived ready in my bag for 3 weeks. We had talked about October light on brick, how the photos would catch it, how our families would fit in 3 long tables, how my sister would stand beside me holding peonies that looked like quiet breathing. Rachel and Monica had come to help with the planning, or so they had said when they slid into their seats with practiced laughter and perfume that smelled like citrus trying to hide a sharper note. We ordered, we sampled bites, we pretended this was normal. Then Ethan cleared his throat, and the room went into that airless quiet that is not peace, it is vacuum. "I think things are moving too fast," he said. He swirled his wine, looked through it like red glass might answer for him. "I need some time to figure things out. I need you to wait for me." The word wait did not fall. It hovered, then lodged between my ribs like the thin edge of a new key. Rachel leaned forward first, hands splayed as if soothing a skittish horse. "It is totally normal, Bella. A lot of men get cold feet when expectations stack up. Just give him some breathing room." Monica nodded so hard, her earrings clicked. "You two are great together. Space will make him even surer, you know." Ethan did not look at me when they spoke for him. He watched his reflection in the bowl of his glass, small and perfect and distant. I have stood in rooms where I negotiated retainers with clients who tried to bargain with my future, who smiled while calculating percentages that did not belong to them. I know the sound of a safety net being requested by someone who plans to jump from balcony to balcony without ever touching the ground. He was not asking for time, he was asking for insurance. The comfort of my devotion beside the thrill of his freedom. I smiled, small and neat, the way you do when you remove a splinter in polite company. "Of course," I said. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I will wait." Relief changed his face like a curtain pulled to reveal a sunnier window. Rachel exhaled, Monica beamed, and the table exhaled with them. They pivoted into weekend plans, a girls' trip that happened to land on the very days I had placed holds on a venue. A trip that sounded like celebration dressed as self-discovery. I nodded, I paid, I listened. The bill was a tidy monument to the night, line items that read like footnotes to a broken paragraph. On the drive home, the city looked like it had been freshly washed and left to drip, traffic lights making little halos on wet asphalt, strangers crossing through my headlights and out the other side as if passing through a life I no longer recognized. My house waited, my house that I had bought, that my name covered from deed to utilities, that held the life I built, piece by careful piece. Ethan's jacket hung on the entry hook, his sneakers at an angle near the mat, a movie of us playing at intimacy. I made tea, not to drink, to hold, the warmth a small anchor against the sudden vastness. I walked the rooms and noticed how quiet looks different when it is final. The bedroom carried the scent of detergent and cologne. The bathroom counter held his razor at attention. The bookshelf hosted his souvenirs like they had paid rent. There is a kind of clarity that comes only when the heart is done debating. It does not shout. It does not bargain. It hums like a blade that has already chosen its line. He wanted me to wait, so I would, just not where he expected, not how he imagined, not as a shelf he could return to when he tired of wandering aisles. I opened my laptop and the screen's glow climbed the walls, turning the room into a small theater where the only audience was a woman who had finally decided to take her own side. Emails queued, names I trusted lighting up like runway lamps, counsel prepared to do what counsel does, documents that had slept ready now standing to attention. I did not send them, not yet. The night was for arranging thought, not executing it. I wrote a note on a square of paper, just one sentence, and set it on the kitchen counter where morning light always lands first. I watched the ink settle, the words drying like a door quietly closing. Upstairs, I pulled a small carry-on from the closet, the one with wheels that never wobble. I placed inside only what could not be replaced, hard drives that sang with my years of work, passports, a folder of documents that could unspool any confusion into straight lines. I left clothes in drawers, shoes in their boxes, the life of a couple untouched like a staged home in a listing, beautiful and misleading. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the building breathe. A pipe ticked, a car door thudded outside, someone laughed on the sidewalk, the city kept moving, and for the first time in months, my chest did not. It was still, it was precise. It was a compass needle finding north. On my phone, messages glowed from Rachel and Monica, a list of lounge names in Miami, little palm tree emojis, the choreography of a weekend that would pretend to be healing while it was only forgetting. Ethan's last text was a simple, "Good night," a period placed like a seal, confident that I was where he left me, grateful, available, paused. I thought of the first time he held my hand, how his fingers were warm and tentative, the sweetness of that small courage. I thought of how that courage had shrunk once comfort arrived, how certainty had been replaced by performance, how vows had turned into options. What I felt was not rage. It was a clean hallway with doors closing in order, soft clicks, no slamming. I set an early alarm, though I did not plan to sleep. Sleep belongs to people who need to escape. I was already stepping out. In the mirror, my face looked like my mother's in the year she left a job that loved her exhaustion and not her talent, calm and finished. Downstairs, I turned off the lights room by room, the way you bow to an audience that has finally learned your name. In the kitchen, the note waited, a single sentence that carried the whole weight of the evening without complaint. I placed my keys beside it in a neat cross, not sacrificing, just marking the spot where one version of me would be laid to rest. Outside, the air was colder than the forecast, the kind of cold that suggests the weather knows something before you do. I stood on the porch long enough to memorize the streetlight's shape on the pavement, the stubborn plant in the planter that refused to die, the cracked line in the step we had promised to fix. Promises, I have learned, are best measured in work, not in calendars. I would keep mine. I would wait. I would wait for the woman I promised myself I would be before anyone else wrote their version of me. Somewhere, across a night that was about to become morning, an ocean listened. Inside, the candle on the table gave up its little performance and went dark. Oh, the morning came without sleep. My alarm chimed at 5, but I was already standing by the window, suitcase waiting by the door, the note on the counter whispering louder than any alarm. The city outside yawned into its routine, headlights sliding across damp asphalt, delivery trucks sighing at red lights, lives continuing in perfect ignorance that mine had just tilted into something unrecognizable. I did not pack clothes, not really. 2 changes, enough for arrival. What I packed instead were hard drives filled with years of code and drafts, contracts from the app acquisition, the clean folder of legal documents that proved every corner of my life was mine. Ethan's shirts remained folded in our drawers, his sneakers lined neatly, his little trophies from college football still perched on the bookshelf. It all looked intact, staged, as though the couple inside had simply stepped out for coffee. But the couple had ended last night. I called my financial advisor before dawn, my voice steady, businesslike. The recent buyout of my software app had left me with more money than Ethan ever imagined, money he had started to look at like it was a joint asset. Not anymore. Within an hour, every cent was moved into a trust in my name only, a lattice of accounts he could not touch even in dreams. Next came the practical cuts. His supplementary credit card, canceled. The joint account he used for his expenses, closed. The car I had bought him 2 birthdays ago, a sleek black sedan he treated more like a toy than transport, paperwork already prepared to repossess, title shifting back to me. Every click, every confirmation screen felt like scissors closing on a thread that had been holding me in place, not with anger, but with precision. After finances came the digital severing. I opened my social media, years of photos, comments, little tokens of validation stacked like a digital scrapbook, and then I deleted them. Not deactivated, deleted. Years gone in seconds. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, erased. Like chalk lines washed in the rain, I backed up contacts, wiped my phone, bought a new SIM, a new number. By the time Ethan reached for me, the cord would already be ash. When the house finally exhaled its silence, I walked through it one last time. The living room, where we had laughed at old movies, the kitchen where he burned pancakes trying to surprise me, the balcony where he kissed me under the city's first snowfall. Memories hung like fragile ornaments, but I felt nothing break when I passed them. On the counter, the note lay waiting. I'll wait. Just 3 words, but they carried all the irony in the world. At the airport, the fluorescent light made everyone look washed and unfinished. I bought a one-way, first-class ticket to Lisbon. No plan beyond the instinct that salt air and foreign language would erase the echo of Ethan's voice. When the plane lifted, city lights dwindling into constellations, I expected tears, nausea, some sign of grief. Instead, there was stillness. My body, my heart, my mind, all agreed on one truth. I was done. 6 weeks later, I was living in a small coastal town in Portugal. My villa overlooked the ocean, white walls catching sunlight, the air smelling of salt and grilled fish. No one knew my name. The silence was not empty, it was healing. The only person who knew where I was lived half a world away, my sister, Emily. Once a week, we spoke on a secured line, her voice half amused, half horrified as she narrated Ethan's unraveling. In those calls, I heard about the chaos my absence had left behind. Ethan had strutted through the first week, telling everyone I was giving him space, parading Rachel and Monica through bars on my canceled credit card. He thought the world was applauding his freedom. Then Friday arrived. His card declined, then again, then again. Confusion morphed into panic into frantic calls. Emily told me his voice cracked when the bank confirmed the account closures. That weekend, he called me 30 times. Texts stacked one after another. By Sunday, every message bounced back. His calls met only with the flat tone of disconnection. His world was shrinking, and I was nowhere inside it. By the second week, Emily's updates turned from frantic to surreal. Ethan had shifted gears, no longer bragging that I was supportive, but insisting to anyone who would listen that I was missing. He told mutual friends he was worried sick, painting himself as the loyal fiancé abandoned by a woman who vanished without reason. The police were even called, by his parents, not him. They walked through my house, noted the missing suitcase, my absent car, the tidy order of everything else. No signs of struggle, no evidence of crime. Their conclusion was simple: voluntary disappearance. Emily told me Ethan was livid at that. He wanted drama, suspicion, some official stamp that confirmed he was the wronged party. Instead, the world quietly accepted that I had simply walked away. Then came the house. Ethan still had a key. He entered expecting me to be curled on the couch, maybe waiting with watery eyes. Instead, he found everything untouched. His jackets, his sneakers, his framed photo on the hallway shelf. The only absence was me, and the note on the counter. Emily said he called her, voice ragged, shouting into the phone. "What does it mean? I'll wait? Wait for what? Where the hell is she?" Her answer was perfect. "Isn't that what you asked her for, Ethan? For her to wait? Looks like she is, just not here." That was when hysteria replaced arrogance. By the third week, his financial reality came crashing down. The car I had gifted him was repossessed. His parents quietly covered the astronomical credit card bill he'd run up with Rachel and Monica before the cards died. And then, Rachel and Monica. The same women who had nodded along that night at the restaurant, who encouraged him to breathe. They began to pull back. Emily said their social posts shifted from wild nights to carefully curated brunches that didn't include Ethan. The whispers were turning against him. One evening, Emily described how Ethan showed up at my old office, demanding to know if my colleagues had heard from me. They hadn't. I had resigned the same day the buyout finalized. He left in a fury, like a man who kept opening doors to find only locked rooms. Back in Portugal, I sat on my balcony, the Atlantic spread endless before me. Emily's voice poured through the line, telling me each detail of his unraveling, and I felt it, something unexpected. Not joy, not satisfaction, a sadness, quiet and reluctant, like watching someone drown in water they had insisted was shallow. There was a time I loved him, a time when I believed in his warmth, when his laughter felt like safety. But now his desperation looked less like love and more like exposure, the mask gone, the man beneath revealed. I asked Emily, "Do you think he regrets losing me, or just regrets losing what I gave him?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Bella, some men don't mourn women. They mourn the benefits women gave them. You were a home, a future, security." He lost those, and the woman who provided them. The ocean roared below my balcony. For the first time since leaving, I closed my eyes and let the sound swallow the echo of his name. By the time autumn colored the trees back home, Ethan's collapse had become a spectacle. Emily's updates came like serialized chapters, each one darker than the last. He had moved out of his parents' house, insisting he didn't need their control. He rented a small apartment with Rachel for a brief stretch until rent came due. According to Emily, the screaming match could be heard 3 floors down. Ethan had assumed Rachel would float him until he got back on his feet. She reminded him she wasn't his bank, then kicked him out. He tried couch hopping, but friends thinned quickly. The same people who once admired his charm now saw him as a liability. Too many remembered the dinner, remembered the words, "I just need her to wait." Monica posted cryptic quotes about toxic men and lessons learned. Everyone knew who she meant. Meanwhile, I was thriving. My villa in Portugal became my workspace, the sea, my soundtrack. I launched a small consulting firm, advising startups on scaling their software. Work came easily, joyfully, like it had been waiting for me to clear the clutter of his shadow. At night, I would sip wine on the balcony, listening to the tide, while Emily's voice on the phone replayed the mess Ethan was making of himself. Then came the night at the bar. Ethan had spotted a group of our old friends, tried to slide into their booth with a wounded smile. He launched into his story, the cruel fiancé who abandoned him, the betrayal of disappearing without warning. But Mark, a friend since college, cut him off mid-sentence. "Ethan, we were all there," Mark said flatly. "We heard you. You told her to wait. You didn't want the wedding. You wanted freedom. And now you're crying because she gave you exactly what you asked for." Emily said the table went silent. Ethan's face cracked. Then he erupted. Accusations, shouting, desperate pleas that no one understood him. The bartender eventually threw him out. That was the turning point. Whatever sympathy lingered in our circle drained away. He became a cautionary tale whispered at gatherings. Don't be like Ethan. Don't play games with people who build your future. Alone, jobless, living back with his parents again, he tried to reinvent himself. He took a job as a server at a chain restaurant, the same one we used to eat at when we were just starting to date. Emily laughed at the irony. For me, life had become still and golden. I had friends now, fellow expats who knew me only as Bella, not as Ethan's fiancé. With them, I wasn't a story. I was just a woman. Yet some nights, guilt flickered like static. Was my silence too cruel? Should I have confronted him instead of erasing him? But then I remembered his eyes at the restaurant. Calculated, detached, certain I'd keep him safe while he reached for more. That memory kept me steady. Silence, I realized, was not cruelty. It was clarity. A full year passed before the final chapter found me. By then, Lisbon was my home. I had moved into a larger apartment overlooking narrow streets and orange-tiled roofs, my consulting firm thriving, my days full of work that mattered, and nights full of laughter that felt real. And yes, there was someone new. Adrian. An architect with kind eyes and steady hands, a man who didn't need me to be his anchor because he already stood on solid ground. With him, love felt nothing like obligation. It felt like breathing. But across the ocean, Ethan's story continued to decay. Emily's calls painted a picture of a man reduced to a cautionary tale. Still living with his parents, still working shifts at that restaurant, still spinning versions of the truth that nobody bought anymore. Then came his final move, pathetic and desperate. He hired a no-win, no-fee lawyer to sue me for breach of promise and emotional distress. He claimed our engagement was a contract, that my disappearance had stolen years of his life. My lawyer laughed when he received the letter. His response was brutal in its simplicity. An affidavit from the wedding planner describing the dinner where Ethan had asked me to wait, plus the restaurant receipt showing I paid for Ethan, Rachel, and Monica's celebratory cocktails that night. The final line of the response read, "She did honor his request. She waited. She is still waiting, just not for him." The case was dropped the next day. Emily told me Ethan rarely left his parents' house after that. He had become a ghost in his own town, his name spoken only as a warning. Don't gamble with a future someone has already built for you. I returned home for Christmas that year, not to him, never to him, but to my family. Walking the streets where I once lived felt strange, like visiting a childhood playground only to find the swings rusted, the laughter gone. I avoided the places I knew he might be. I didn't need to see his face to know what had become of him, because the truth was everywhere, in whispers at cafes, in knowing looks from old acquaintances. The story of our breakup had turned into something like legend. The man who asked his fiancée to wait, and she vanished instead. I stood one evening on my parents' porch, the winter air sharp and honest, and I realized something. My revenge had never been the money I locked away, or the credit cards I canceled, or even the ocean that separated us. My revenge was absence, the silence where my presence used to be. Ethan wanted me paused on a shelf until he was ready to pick me up again. What he didn't see was that his request wasn't control, it was closure, his last decision in our story. I whispered into the night, not for him, but for myself. You asked me to wait, and I did. I waited for the woman I was always meant to become. He is still waiting, but I am already free.